So what we're going to do, instead of like making a consensus board and say, oh, these are our rankings, I feel like a really fun way to do this and just kind of like plant your flag and have a little bit more discussions and have definitely some disagreements, because I know we're going to have disagreements here, is let's turn this into like a little bit of a draft, as if we are redrafting this rookie class as to where we see their dynasty value going. And I kind of wanted to do a dynasty angle here because, listen, the only people listening or watching a fantasy football show in the middle of February are the dynasty degenerates. Okay, so we're going to play to them for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's get to my pick at pick number 6. And man, I took my guy, and I'm going to be with him till he's out of the league in hopefully 20 years and inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it's Jameson Williams, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. And listen, there's not much to go off of here. This is a projection, okay? This is a guy who had a fantastic prospect profile for the year that he broke out at Alabama. Minimal action as a rookie. He was my wide receiver rookie 1 in the class last year. I know, a little controversial, but I absolutely loved his film. And I think that for a lot of draft analysts, he was the rookie wide receiver 1 until he tore his ACL in that national championship. And he was just kind of like the forgotten guy. Like there was everyone else up in the top cluster, and then Jameson Williams was the injured guy. Something that I really loved is the way that the Lions kind of took their time with him. They're protecting that injury. They traded up pretty high from 32 to 12 to go get Jameson Williams. They value this guy a lot. And Dave, you have one of my favorite tweets of the whole offseason on Jameson Williams. It's just, he had 3 touches last year, a 41-yard touchdown reception, a 40-yard end-around rushing play, and a 66-yard touchdown reception called back on a penalty. So yeah, maybe the guy is pretty good. All right, he had an average depth of target that was 19.2 yards, most among all starting wide receivers in 2023. The problem is it's just such a small sample size, 8 targets. So I know that everything I'm giving you guys here and everything I'm giving to our audience right now is all projection, right? But I think there is legitimate reason to be excited about Jameson Williams going into this next year. And man, Jared Goff led a pretty solid Lions offense. And I think Jameson and Amon-Ra St. Brown complement each other pretty well as wide receivers. And Joey, I'm gonna throw this to you. We don't have much to go off on Jameson Williams. Where's your confidence level? Give me like a 1 out of 10. Where's your confidence level with Jameson Williams?
For where he's being drafted, I'll say an 8. I think, what you guys brought up, the 3 touches he had, they were monster plays. But I think he exceeded his expectations with those 3 plays. And it's not hard to lower your expectations back down to pretty much where they were. So he's someone I want on my teams, especially in Dynasty. Love him. And honestly, I think Jared Goff's a really good fit in Detroit, and I think they can do some really great things together.
Yeah, I think Jameson Williams is going to be a lot of fantasy analysts sleeper going into next year.
Yeah.
And if the Lions, they have 2 first-round picks, I'm not mistaken, right? If they go and they take one of those young developmental quarterbacks, like I've seen an Anthony Richardson or something, oh man, Jameson is going to be flying to the moon. All right, Dave, you're up at pick 107. Who'd you take?
Now, I'll just throw it out there. I'm taking Treylon Burks, and I just want to talk about what a wild ride his value has been. I like to use keeptradecut.com. They do a great job of crowdsourcing dynasty rankings, and they also give you the ability to track ADP and dynasty rankings over time. And Treylon Burks was the wide receiver 14 in dynasty after the NFL draft. By the time the season kicked off, he was the wide receiver 34. By December, he was the wide receiver 18, and then he dipped down to wide receiver 26, balanced out at wide receiver 22 right now. I just don't understand where the volatility is coming from with Treylon Burks. This kid went from being almost a dynasty wide receiver 1 to a dynasty wide receiver 3 before he ever even took a snap of football. We had
asthma, Dave. Asthma.
Right, asthma gate. We had, he's more concerned with shooting hogs out of helicopters than he is playing football. I mean, people were doing whatever they could to write inflammatory stories about this kid and try to paint him in a negative light. And then he face plants as a rookie. By all intents and purposes, when you look at his output, he face planted as a rookie, but he was injured the entire year. So I don't really know if we can hold that against him. I mean, we should have learned this lesson with Michael Pittman 2 years ago, that if somebody's just injured multiple times throughout their rookie season, we shouldn't use that as an indictment against their profile. I'm still looking at Treylon Burks as the same guy who was drafted 18th overall in the first round on a team that is desperate for wide receiver 1, a guy that has game-breaking speed, can make contested catches, can do so much after the catch. I don't understand why he is getting pushed down to where he is right now. I'm still a firm believer in the talent, and I'm not going to penalize him for being injured. It's as simple as that. Really, I wanted Jameson Williams here, but I knew that he wasn't going to make it to me with you picking ahead of me, Alfredo. But I am more than happy to take Treylon Burks here at 107.
By the way, quick news update for those of you listening. The Tennessee Titans have released Robert Woods. Not that he was taking a whole bunch of targets away from Treylon Burks, but the road gets a little bit easier. And I'll throw this back to you, Dave, really quick. Treylon Burks, we talk about you betting on the talent. How worried are you about the situation in Tennessee where they may not just be like out a quarterback, but they may have to reinvent their offense entirely? Derrick Henry is so close to that age cliff, man. And Ryan Tannehill had injuries and struggles, and Malik Willis looked like not good. That's all. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Not good. So, Dave, when you look at these guys, let's say Drake London, Treylon Burks, both very talented, both in situations where things could get reinvented. Who do you have a little bit more confidence in there?
I think I've got more confidence in Drake London just because we were able to actually see. He cleared the bar last year. He passed the test by putting up really good numbers and commanding targets. We only saw it really in like 2.5 games with Treylon Burks. He had that, 110-yard performance or something like that. The next week he had 70 yards and a touchdown. And we finally got to the point where we're like, all right, Treylon Burks is here. He's going to do his thing. And then he had that brutal concussion on the touchdown catch, which I want to point out that he did secure. I mean, just an amazing catch, concussion.
Phenomenal play.
Not even talking about that, but it seemed like he was finally starting to heat up then. But with Drake London, we saw it over the course of a whole season. With Treylon Burks, we saw it for like a 2.5 game sample size. So I've got a little bit more faith in Drake London, but I still think that Burks has every opportunity to break out this year.
Joey, you are up at 108. I think if I saw this correctly, you are wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Show the YouTube people. If you are not subscribed to the Football Guys YouTube channel, this is the time. Go subscribe and look at that. That's a gorgeous Dameon Pierce shirt underneath a denim jacket Joey Wright is rocking.
Yeah, so sometimes you care about a player so much, or you make enough jokes or reference them enough that you go buy the shirt. And so I did. I went and bought the shirt last year, and then he got injured the very next week. But that's beside the point. So if you're aware of who I am, you know that I have a massive man crush on Dameon Pierce. One of only 3 rookies atop 1,200 total yards last year. Over 75 scrimmage yards in 9 of his 13 games. Finished first among rookies in rushing yards per game. And that he finishes the RB21 in PPR, which is right around where I'm probably going to be taking him as like a low line RB2. My favorite thing about Dameon Pierce is he will just run you over. 27 broken tackles, which was 4th best in the league last year. He trailed Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Nick Chubb. And he played 4 less games than Chubb and Jacobs and 3 less than Henry. So yeah, a lot of people, they like to bring up his draft capital as a reason that Houston could just move on from him. He's a 4th round pick for the Texans. I get it. When he was at Florida though, he did not get a lot of mileage on him, which as a Florida Gator fan, I was furious. Like, please play this guy. But as an NFL fantasy player, I'm excited because he doesn't have that mileage coming into him into the NFL. But the Texans, they made an interesting move last year. When he got hurt and there was 4 games left in the season, he could have come back with about 2 or 3 games to play, but they put him on season-ending IR. I feel like they're protecting the investment. I think Dameon Pierce is the real thing, and I was elated to get him here.
Yeah, I love that, Joey. Which you're reading between the lines there that they put him on season-ending IR, they arrested the guy, bringing him back healthy for next year. And I think there's one thing that if you are a Dameon Pierce manager in Dynasty, and I know there's a lot of talk about, sell him now, cash in. And I get that. I can see both sides of the argument, but also like you're probably going to get another year or 2 of good production out of Dameon Pierce because a team like the Houston Texans, they're not a couple pieces away from competing. They are rebuilding, and rebuilding teams do not invest heavily into positions like the running back. Okay, so Dameon Pierce, a guy who's already been successful, I think he's still got plenty of dynasty value. Let's get to pick 109. This was mine. I went with Christian Watson, the wide receiver out of Green Bay. Listen, Christian Watson, man, he had just this kind of crazy stretch. We all know he'd take a little bit of time in the NFL to get going. And when he finally did, man, the back end of the season was absolutely nuts. In weeks 10 through 17, he was the wide receiver 9 in fantasy points per game. The only thing I think makes everybody think twice is just it was a 4-game stretch where he scored 7 touchdowns. Like it was crazy. I can't remember if it was a Sunday night game or Monday night, one of those primetime games where Christian Watson goes out and scores 3 touchdowns. And we're all just like, oh my, this is the guy. Like, this is the new guy. He's going to be elite, top tier wide receiver. And I think that started up a lot of discussion about him. And you talk about Dave dynasty values are going all over the place. Christian Watson is all over the place. And I know for best ballers out there, I know that thing has been skyrocketing up. So there's a little bit of concern when it comes to Christian Watson, but I will say this: there's some good peripheral statistics here. He's targeted on 24% of the routes run. That's top 15 in the NFL, third highest in the class behind Olave and London. Okay, and then actually, fun little stat here. Okay, not stat, but a fun tweet from our own Adam Harstad here at Football Guys, who Adam has forgotten more about football than I think any person will ever know. He is one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to football and statistics. And he took a look at some of the closest comparable rookie seasons to Christian Watson. It belongs to guys like Stephon Diggs, Percy Harvin, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, Michael Thomas. These are some very, very good players to be in company with. And listen, there might be some questions about Christian Watson, but I think there's some incredible upside. And we've yet to see what Jordan Love is going to bring to the table. So I think that, man, the upside is just, it's so tantalizing when it comes to Christian Watson. Dave, you're going to be up now with pick 10. You took another wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and rewind a few minutes. Everything that I said about Treylon Burks, I'm going to say about Jahan Dotson. I mean, this kid is a phenomenal talent that was injured his rookie season and has seen his value plummet because of it. And funny enough, Alfredo, I wanted to shout out Adam Harstead as well. You just talked about his Christian Watson take, but I think he has one of the most succinct and best takes for Dynasty football, and it is do whatever you can to acquire young receivers with first-round draft capital. And that's Jahan Dotson. I mean, these guys typically don't bust. For every Jalen Reagor you have, you've got 10 guys that are going to give you a wide receiver one season. So I'm just not that concerned about it. These guys hit more often than almost anybody else. We are pretty good at projecting wide receiver talent when it comes from college to the pro level. Now, touchdowns are fluky and they're really hard to predict, but I'm not willing to write off a guy who caught 4 touchdowns in his first 4 games. And he's not this big-bodied red zone alpha type of wide receiver. He's a small and shifty guy who was shaking defenders out of their boots, blazing past safeties, making contested catches. When I watch this kid play, I see so much of Tyler Lockett, just 10 years younger. I got to be honest, I was kind of shocked to see Dameon Pierce and Christian Watson go ahead of him. Jahan Dotson just feels like the most often forgotten kid in this draft class. And I think that he's got all the tools to be a very, very good wide receiver with a handful of wide receiver one seasons in his range of outcomes.
First of all, not a kid. He's a man. All right. Put some respect on Jahan Dotson. Also, don't just sit here and dog our picks. Okay. That's just highlight yours. Okay. Like, be happy with your pick.
I almost took Jahan Dotson over Treylon Burks. That's all I'm going to say.
Where's your Jahan Dotson shirt, Dave? Like, show us that you mean it. You know?
Good point.
Yeah. You don't have a Jahan Dotson shirt. Sit down, Dave. All right, Joey, you're up at pick 11.
Yeah. Excuse me. You guys make me laugh. I took Isiah Pacheco, Super Bowl champion Isiah Pacheco. Good regular season, though, rookie campaign. 40 yards shy of 1,000 scrimmage yards, 5 touchdowns, 4.9 yards per carry. That's sexy for a rookie. A great playoff showing, double-digit fantasy points in all 3 playoff games for the Chiefs this year. At least 13 total touches in each game as well. And then in the biggest game of the season, he led his team in carries and rushing yards, and he had a touchdown. So that's great. In the 2023 season, what I see from him, Jerick McKinnon, he's been an unrestricted free agent. He had a great finish to his regular season. I see him testing the market. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not that guy. You know, the Chiefs, he has a first-round draft capital, and I think that's a mistake. I mean, they passed over him for Jonathan Taylor, for goodness sake. So, the Chiefs, they can bring him back in 2024, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but they'd owe him $5.4 million, and they wouldn't face any penalty for cutting him. Pacheco is in the back of the roster for the Chiefs, and I could see even larger workload for him in 2023.
Yeah, Dave, and for Isiah Pacheco, the Chiefs are likely going to be without your guy, Jerick McKinnon, who was so impressive throughout the year. And Joey, could you can you just say Clyde Edwards-Helaire a few less times, please? Like, there's a lot of PTSD. Every time you say it, dude, like I cringe. All right, so last pick here of the first round, I took George Pickens, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this was a tough one. It's kind of weird. Like, I love George Pickens, the player. I think he's super weird the way he stands in front of the TV and when he watches the draft, and I just love his talent, right? Like, his film popped for me. I absolutely loved it, but this has just been man, the Steelers were just a really odd team. I think he's got a lot of things that are going against him right now. The quarterback play, he had Trubisky, then it was Pickett as a rookie, and typically you don't see a lot of production for wide receivers with rookie quarterbacks. Offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. We thought we were going to get some sweet release and that he was going to be gone from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and nope, they're bringing him right back. So we could end up with a little bit more of the same. And he's also, once again, going to be sharing targets with guys like Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, if he gets a little bit more involved in that passing game like we saw his rookie year. So there's some worry when it comes to George Pickens, and I think that's why he's fallen actually down to this spot in 12. In 2022, it was just a lot of inconsistency. He had 6 finishes as a top 24 wide receiver. Then he also had 8 weeks outside of the top 50. You didn't really know when you could rely on him, and so much of this, I can throw a whole bunch of numbers at you, but basically the problem with George Pickens was everything for him was a contested catch. Everything. And it wasn't necessarily because he can't get open. It's a system problem with Matt Canada and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matt Canada loves to roll out the quarterbacks, get that quarterback, whether it's Pickett or Trubisky, into a half field set where all he has to do is really look at a half field, make 2 reads, a short read or a deep read, and then just toss that ball, toss that ball deep. And for George Pickens, that's all they did. Kenny Pickett had already developed that relationship with him. That's why he kept targeting him so much. Pickens was 9th in the NFL in contested targets, okay? And this was something that really plagued him. And it turned into a whole thing about how George Pickens can't get open, and he's out there creating all these highlight catches. And there's another player that's being talked about as a guy, sell him in Dynasty. I don't know that I'm quite there yet. I think let's see what happens throughout this year. I'm not willing to cut bait on a guy this early. Some similar guys with similar prospect profiles, similar contested target profiles here in the NFL that he kind of looks like, don't kill me on this, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins. I'm not saying he's going to be there, but I'm saying there is an avenue to get there. All right, so the talent is there. I'm just hoping that this offense can evolve a little bit.